Dear Colin, of the notable quarterbacks in their second year, which one do you think separates? My guess, Trevor Lawrence, Jacksonville. Number one, he's more talented than the rest of them. I think you'll see it this year. Number two, unlike Mac Jones in New England, the Jags have leaned in to Trevor Lawrence. They got him an offensive coach. They got him Christian Kirk, Zay Jones. They got him a tight end, Evan Ingram, and two running backs banged up last year, both return this year. In every unit offensively, they leaned in. It's also a weaker than average division. My guess is Trevor Lawrence puts up pretty big numbers in year two for the Jags. Can't wait to watch. The Jets will be an interesting team because I think they have the right GM. I think their roster is significantly better than 2 years ago with this GM. I think Zach Wilson has some talent. I really do. He's got a whip of an arm. Little Johnny Manziel personality-wise, a little bit of hero ball. But I think the Jets are going to be a 6-7 win team. And so when I heard this news on Mekhi Becton, it's obviously very bad news. Really tough for young quarterbacks with, backup left tackles. Maybe they go after Dwayne Brown, who the Seahawks moved off of. But the Jets will be an interesting team to watch. Unlike the Giants, who don't have the quarterback, who don't have the roster, and have been bad for most of the last 9 years, there have been moments with the Jets in the last decade that you kind of like them, that you're kind of interested in them. So I think the Jets, there's some wins early in their schedule, first 8 games. But I do think they whiffed on the coach. I think the Giants got the right coach, but have a much bigger hole to dig out of because they have the wrong quarterback. I think the Jets got a lot right, and maybe even Zach Wilson, but I think they got the coach wrong. I don't think Saleh was ready in that division with Sean McDermott, Bill Belichick. He was ready to go head-to-head with those guys. Not with that roster. Kevin Durant, about a month and a half ago, I want out. Then he went dark, didn't hear from him. So Shams Charania, legitimate source, Durant met with the owner, Joe Asai, and said, fire Steve Nash and the GM, Sean Marks, or I'm out. So, Kevin Durant's interesting. So I got kids, right? Teenage kids. And one of the things I have noticed and had to sort of monitor, and it's a reality if you're a parent with teenagers, is social media. It's got a real effect on young people because young people generally aren't married. They're a little self-absorbed. Young people don't have kids or a professional career. So a lot of time, 7-8 hours or more on the phone. And I try to dissuade my kids from doing that. I have said some of the weirdest behavior in professional sports has been from single guys. No kids, no wife, a lot of time by themselves, get off work, go to the phone. Aaron Rodgers, James Harden, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, Ben Simmons, right? A lot more time to be into you. And I think Kevin Durant, actually, we know he engages a lot on social media and is a pretty sensitive guy. Nothing wrong with that. That I think Kevin Durant's one of the first victims of social media as a professional athlete. And by victim, I mean, if Twitter didn't exist, Instagram didn't exist, the constant harping on Kevin Durant about joining a championship team in the Bay Area, he wouldn't have left. I do think he would have left Russell Westbrook because Westbrook takes the air out of the ball, and Durant increasingly was frustrated that he would control the possession until the very last few seconds, give Durant a pass in the corner, and he'd have an awkward shot. And there was a stat I saw a few years ago that Durant was shooting with less time on the clock than anybody else in the league when he was a member of the OKC Thunder. So I think that would have transpired, that move. But I think Golden State, the minute he joined a championship team, this avalanche, this tsunami of social media backlash that he couldn't beat him, so he joined him, I think it affected him. He was very prickly, more so than usual, and I think it wore him down. And that he didn't really truly enjoy being the 2-time finals MVP. He enjoyed it very, very briefly. And everybody around him with the Warriors because of social media, walked on eggshells. Bob Myers once joked at a championship parade about KD. It got oohs and ahs from the crowd. It's been well documented. It's been well documented that Steve Kerr had confided with players on the team. It was just a big pain in the ass. You were constantly worrying about offending Kevin Durant. And so I think to some degree, his move to Brooklyn, which has been an absolute mess, 2 first-round exits last year, this year, it's a mess. I think he's a victim of social media. And, from time to time, I don't do it much, but once or twice a year, I'll go speak to a college campus or young broadcasters, or even if it's private. I always tell them, don't let Twitter produce your show. 22% of Americans are on Twitter. 78% of people are not. It's simply not a reality. And I think Kevin Durant, it's easy to be fooled, tricked, persuaded, bothered. Your anxiety level can go up. It's happened to me before, where I just put the phone down. People are being ridiculous. I have so many filters on my phone now. I don't block anybody. I just don't see the criticisms because I don't want to deal with trolls. And I think Kevin Durant, who's been pretty famously prickly on that and sensitive to that, was a victim of that. I don't think of any of that stuff. If it doesn't exist, he's still a Warrior. Because I'll say it again, I thought leaving Steph for Kyrie was absolutely an egregiously bad decision. And I don't think Durant's a dumb guy. He knows basketball. He knows he can play. He was persuaded by social media. So of your 4 New York Times bestsellers, read all of them. One of them, of course, is Belichick, and Brady is through that book. And so we discover that Tom was flirting, on a yacht with one of the co-owners of the Miami Dolphins. And, I said the other day, there's so much outrage on the internet. And my take was Michael Jordan at the end of his career was flirting with Abe Pollin. Jeter immediately went into ownership. A story 2 weeks ago, NBA's going to Vegas and LeBron wants to be one of the owners. And I'm like, if you have $500 million net worth, rich guys, billionaires, one of the things they don't have beyond they can buy anything, they don't have a lot of cool friends. They've got, other business people, and they like to hang out with Jeter or Jordan or LeBron or Brady. And I can see Brady at the end of his career, like Michael and Jeter, and a lot of these guys, LeBron, saying, I'm not putting my money all in the market. I've already owned 6 homes. It's like, what's the safest investment in the world? And what do I know? A pro sports franchise. So I look at it and I don't think less of him. But what's interesting, Ian, and you know this well, we've got Deflategate with Tom. We've got flirting with, an NFL owner. Why? He's a Patriot. We have the Bruce Arians thing where it does appear he ran him out, but he won't own it. There's a connection to Trump, which makes some people uneasy. Is Brady fooling us, or do you think it is Corey's a good guy and he's just so rich he's a little tone deaf to some of this stuff? Or has some of this just been wonderful PR with Tom?
Oh, I think what you just said about him being a little tone deaf, a rich, very successful man who is a little disconnected from reality. The rules don't apply to him. And I think you saw that too when he ran those workouts with Tampa Bay when the union said, don't run these during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Right. And he just did them anyway. And I criticized him for that. And I do think I put something out on Twitter after I saw what went down and what the league found in terms of the tampering. I thought Tom Brady, that was a bad look. And I don't really care about the Tampa Bay part of it because that's when he's looking maybe to go into retirement, into ownership. But when he's playing in 2019, starting in August of 2019, he knew he still wanted to play more. He just didn't want to play for Belichick anymore. And when he's talking to a division rival the entire season, numerous conversations, detailed conversations, that's what the league found. Man, he is like Jeter, the embodiment of the all-in player, all about winning 24/7. And during the course of the year, you're the starting quarterback for one team in the AFC East, and you're having multiple detailed conversations, negotiations with another team in the AFC East. And nobody seemed to care about that. I pointed that out, and most people were like, this isn't a player issue. You're not going to punish the player. You always punish the recruiting ownership group. I felt like, wow, that was It just hit me that here's a guy that he was all about being all in. And I find it hard to believe that he wasn't distracted at some point in the 2019 season as the starting quarterback for the Patriots when he was negotiating with another franchise. So should he have been punished for that? I sort of think probably not a major punishment, but I think for his image as the ultimate competitor in the NFL, I thought that was a really bad look. And I think most people just gave him a pass on it. I was a little surprised by that.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's sort of like Reagan was so popular. You know, he joked about bombing Russia. Popularity has a force field of its own. I mean, Michael Jordan, who had the first major shoe contract, that Nike shield around Michael Jordan, you can't penetrate it. He punched teammates. He quit twice. I mean, it is. Popularity is a remarkable thing. And I think Jeter had it, and I think Brady has it. I mean, it's look at this. The last 2 years he was in New England, everybody had his jersey. It was still like number one in the league. I mean, Aaron Rodgers has been in Green Bay for years, but his jersey's 20th right now. 20th. Tom's is 1, and it was 1 until the end in New England. Rodgers is a back-to-back MVP. It's 20th. So I think I look at Tom, and I'm a huge Brady advocate, but there's some drips. There's a leak in the faucet. There's been some tone-deaf stuff. I didn't even think about the practice. And I think Tom's a good guy, but I really do think at his heart he's a good guy. I think when you get that rich, Ian, and that famous, you can't relate. And I almost don't blame you. You literally don't go to the DMV. You don't go to an airport. You don't go to the grocery store. I mean, seriously,
Right.
It's not a normal life.
It's not. I think he's the greatest football player ever. I mean, my dad once said that there would never be a greater football player than Jim Brown. And as an athlete, Tom's not on the same planet with people like Jim Brown, Lawrence Taylor, Walter Payton, and you think of some of the greats of the greats. But in terms of performance, body of work, and the significance of that position, he's not just the greatest quarterback ever. I think he's the greatest football player ever. So I have just a tremendous amount of respect. I do think at heart, from doing the book and talking to a lot of his friends and people who really knew him, I do think he's definitely a good person. And I just think, and nobody has a perfect career. And when you're constantly in the public eye, you're going to make mistakes and people are going to know about them. And I think he's made a few, whatever mistakes he made in Deflategate and negotiating with another franchise while you're playing quarterback for the Patriots. I had a problem with that. I had a problem with him running multiple practices when the union said, don't do it during the pandemic because you're putting people at risk and risking maybe the start of the season if we have everybody running these practices. And that was right in the heart of the pandemic. And so, but I think the bogeys on his scorecard are manageable, and he's got more birdies than everybody else. So that's why he should go down as the greatest football player who ever lived.